Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours.
Holodomor. Putin's plan for 2045 revealed. ICBM launch, the consequences. New terrorist attacks in Ukraine. Missile debris fall on the road. Drone attack stats. Russian losses in a war. November 23 is a Holodomor Remembrance Day in Ukraine. These are three terrible episodes of artificial famine created by the Soviet Union in 1921, 1932 and 1946. 30 countries of the world and European Parliament officially recognized Stalin's program of confiscating food from ordinary residents of Ukraine as a genocide of the Ukrainian people. In the photo, you can see a memorial action at the monument of the victims of the Holodomor here in Kyiv. We bring heirs of wheat to the monument, which is symbolic because according to Stalin's law, people were shot or sent to Siberia for 10 years with full confiscation of their property for, quote, 5 years of wheat that were found in their houses. Thus, it was believed that they were stealing food from the Union. In fact, on Stalin's orders, the leadership of the Soviet Union and the NKVD carried out a large-scale extermination of ordinary residents of Ukraine and thus diluted our population with the help of Russians loyal to the Union. A common situation is when a Ukrainian family in a village was dying of hunger, their home was occupied by Russians brought from Siberia. 5 years of wheat, damn it. In this photo, you see a man holding a sign in Ukrainian. The first bread goes to the country. Why did this even happen? Mass starvation was mostly caused by a low harvest due to drought and the country's post-war devastation in 1946. The confiscated food from farmers was sent abroad to help needy countries and thus increase the Soviets' influence. Does this remind you of anything? The Russians have now occupied our territories in the south, stole grain which is now being exchanged with North Korea for their soldiers, and in 2022 Putin prevented the sea export of Ukrainian grain. Stalin's damn hairs will not calm down. What's interesting is that in 1922, during the first Holodomor, the Soviet leadership acknowledged the massive famine and turned to the States to get food under the aid program for Europe after World War I. I found this picture of an American food truck with the words American Relief Samara written on it. Samara is a city in Russia. I don't believe that world history always repeats itself 100% because in that case all human actions would be in vain, but I do see that there are some patterns that can be repeated. So please, America, after Putin's regime falls, I beg you, no need to save Russians from the famine that will come. They must finally learn this lesson and put their damn country in order and comply with the international laws. Let's already make this territory at least safe for civilization. Then in 1920s, Ukraine also received aid, but despite this, about 500,000 people died during the first Holodomor. In this photo, we see a convoy with the food from the States. It is so strange that a country with such a rich soil and a huge agricultural fields, 2 seas and perfect location for trade had to starve. This is what happens when a country is ruled by damn communists. Look at North Korea now, this is a pattern that repeats itself. 8 years later, the second Holodomor began, the largest one. Then 3,900,000 Ukrainians died. Visual confirmation of this is a series of photographs by Austrian engineer Alexander Winnerberger, who was in the Kharkiv region. This city is that Putin is now shelling every day, and photographed crowds of hungry people who were dying without food. I will leave a link to the article and pictures below the video. The most idiotic thing, of course, is sending Ukrainian grain to Eastern European countries to prove the superiority of communism. In total, Stalin sent more than 1 million tons of grain to Romania, Czechoslovakia and Poland, while the residents of the Ukrainian Republic were dying without this grain. I studied this topic in history lessons at school in Mariupol, but honestly, at 12 years old, it seemed like a scary fairy tale from the distant past, and in the 90s, we lived more or less normally, at least I always had food at home. And now when I already know all these stories about how my friends ate dogs in Mariupol 2 years ago, when I talk to people who came out of Russian captivity having lost 100 pounds or 40 kilograms of weight, and I hate all this and those who are responsible for this. Every Russian who thinks that they are liberating someone and every useful idiot who thinks that in this war not everything is so clear-cut. I will leave a link below the video to a video where American-Polish historian Anne Applebaum talks about her book Red Famine. I don't think that many people will watch this blog, but I wrote it to honor the memory of millions of my compatriots who gave their lives, and the fact that I can tell you this now means that one of my ancestors had some property that he could sell or trade and was able to survive in this hell. This concept also speaks to why I, as a person from intelligent family of teachers, do not have family property or inheritance. In simple words, the damn Soviets robbed us many generations ago, and 2 years ago they burned my apartment with everything that was in it. This pattern of history has definitely repeated itself. While I was writing this text, I came across an article about James Mace and couldn't help but include a section about him here. Ukraine is one of those countries that in its sub-totalitarian past experienced one of the greatest tragedies in the history of human civilization, genocide. These words engraved on the door of a museum belong to the American historian James Mace, who was buried in Baikova Cemetery in Kyiv. It was James Mace who started the all-Ukrainian tradition of symbolically honoring the Holodomor victims, candle in the window. He believed that this human action would be a call of generations, a tribute to the memory of the dead, which anyone can pay without leaving home. Lots of lights in the windows show that we have not forgotten our past and those we lost. I will also leave a link to the article about him in English below. I am grateful to Mr. Mace for his work and for the fact that on his initiative people light candles on November 23 in memory of the victims. And today we say in Ukraine that where besides a candle a gun is visible in the window, there will never again be an artificial famine. So that no one has any illusions about appeasing Putin, and strangely enough, there are still people who believe that if you press pause today, the war will end forever. There is cause and effect, ladies and gentlemen, as always. On this map, you can see our neighbors' rough idea of what they want Ukraine to be like in the period up to 2045. I can assume that the year 45 is a reference to 1945, when Germany capitulated in the World War II, and these are Putin's wet dreams that will help him achieve some kind of greatness, because only through murders and conquests can he grow in some form. They do not know how to create their own, as we all see. Our intelligence confirms that since they failed to take Kyiv in 3 days, then over the next 10 years the Russians would like to divide our territory into 3 parts. The southeast marked in red they want to have as new regions of the Russian Federation or Russian Empire. The central part, including the capital Kyiv, marked in orange, would be preferable for them to as a pro-Russian state formation, and in the western regions marked in yellow they understand for themselves as disputed territories. Russians are afraid to stick their nose in Tel Aviv? I wonder why. In general, if they cannot capture us completely, they will try to bite off pieces wherever they can. What do I feel? Nothing. These are the enemy's plans that do not suit me. I look at the red part of the map where my home is and I feel nothing. All I think about is, I don't care what you want, this map is the ravings of a madman, and I work every damn day to ensure that their plans have no future. And I show you this map simply to emphasize what their possible plan looks like. Okay, all week I've been studying this new super hyper missile that Putin launched at the city of Dnipro and scared the whole world. Well, more like tried to scare, let's be honest. So I won't do a huge analysis on the missile. I'll tell you the main points, and as it turns out, there's not much interest in there. First, our intelligence says that this is not a new super missile, but an old development from the 90s called Bulava, which later became the Kedar missile system, and the name Oreshnik is essentially a version, not a separate new thing. Fragments confirm that the presence of old components. Putin has only a few of these missiles, and there is no point in talking about mass production yet, no matter how hard he tries to show the opposite. Second, this missile can theoretically carry a nuclear charge, but so can Iskanders and Kinzhals, hundreds of which they have already launched at Ukraine over almost 3 years of invasion. That is, the launch of this so-called super rocket is nothing more than a bluff to show, hey West, this thing can fly 3,500 miles or 6,000 kilometers. There was no practical sense in launching it 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers across Ukraine. So he just made a statement. Let's wait what the world leaders will do in return. Third, this video is of low quality, but you can tell from the dark spots what the aftermath of the attack on the industrial zone in the city of Dnipro looks like. I even studied the reaction of the most hopeless Z bloggers. A quote from there. Satellite images of the Ukrainian Yuzhmash plant, which was hit by Oreshnik, have appeared. The workshops are still there, nothing has been reduced to dust. The private sector in the north got it worse. And this. Russian channels are writing that after Oreshnik strike, the plant no longer exists. It looks like the satellite image from the Sentinel is deceiving me, or the Ukrainians built an ideal model of the plant to hide the success of Putin's missile. In general, we learned nothing new. The missile is worse than stated, Putin is lying, the war continues. The same we already saw with the Kinzhals trying to destroy the Patriot system in Kyiv 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the threat of terrorist attacks in the rear has now become real in Ukraine. We have enough missiles, drones and aero bombs and a creeping front line, but now the Russians are sponsoring the production of bombs and the killing of our soldiers in the rear. In the photo is a body of Ukrainian soldier who was blown up here in Kyiv with a homemade bomb. A Russian agent made an explosive device, put it in a bag and put it in a car, and when the owner picked up the bag, an explosion occurred. I have only seen this in movies and could never imagine that this could be our reality. Well, like thousands of other terrible events. Since you most likely watched this where such things do not happen, I'll say that in my head it's all still perceived as something unreal and exception to the rule, and I constantly compare everything that is happening with that normal, peaceful life, and the psyche says, look, you remember how it was, this is the norm. But in fact, the norm has long changed. It's just that the psyche doesn't want to accept that now in my country explosions are happening everywhere where it seemed impossible. As a continuation of the news, photographs of the arrest of a group of criminals who were making similar explosive devices appeared. In the city of Zhytomyr, not far from Kyiv, 5 people were detained who were assembling such bombs. They face up to 12 years in prison, which is not enough in my opinion. The photographs showed that they were making an explosive pack with nails and using mobile phones to activate it. As if it were some kind of action movie from the 90s, I wonder if this can already be considered another escalation on the part of the Russians or not. I've been busy getting my teeth fixed for 2 weeks straight, and when the surgeon performs another operation, cuts me and drills into my jaw, it seems to me that I no longer feel anything. Overall, I'll say that over these almost 3 years of full-scale war, I feel loss of emotions, and it's scary to realize. In the video, you see how the debris of a downed Russian missile falls on the road in the city of Sumy near the northeastern border of Ukraine, and people just continue to go about their business as if nothing happened. But this was a real combat missile that could explode. I do not know how to describe this state. In this video, Ukrainian soldiers are evacuating a wounded person from the battlefield and an enemy shell flies very close, but you can clearly see that they did not even react to it, didn't change their pace and didn't even seem to flinch. In English, there's an expression dead inside, and maybe this is the current state of all of us. On the night of the 26th, the Russians broke the record for the number of drones. They launched 188 drones at us at the same time, and it seemed like an endless process. We shot them down all night. In the end, we shot down and landed 171 drones, and another 5 flew to Belarus. In total, 12 drones hit our residential buildings. Last night there were fewer drones, only 89, if it's acceptable to call it only, and we shot down 84 and the remaining 5 flew to guess where? Of course to Belarus. This is a new trend. I wonder how Belarusians like it. What is bad is that the Russians are now using shrapnel in these drones, which is used to destroy people, not buildings. That is, in November, there were explosions of homemade bombs in the rear, plus shrapnel on civilian homes. If there is a more vile people than Russians, write in the comments. I'm done. I've accepted the fact that I just hate them more and more every day. Russians lost 1,580 soldiers over the past day. This is a consistently high number and the figure is not decreasing. They continue to push through with meat and have some tactical successes. I don't know how much longer they will last. We have huge crowds of Russian homeless people who are happy to die for rubles, and now thousands of hungry North Koreans who are happy to die for their Saint Kim, plus a certain number of Africans, Nepalese, and other people who just traveling in the hope of earning money, of course, not because high level of life in their homelands. We also destroyed another 14 Russian tanks, 48 armored and 84 regular vehicles, 24 artillery systems, 172 units of different equipment over the past day. Today is a rather depressing video. I would like to finish with something optimistic. Also, I'm not very optimistic today. Let me leave a quote from the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, General Syrsky. "We must stop the enemy, but the victory is impossible if Ukrainian armed forces work only in defense. We must seize the initiative and counterattack. We must and we will. Where? You'll see." Thanks to everyone who watches my videos. Take care and I hope to see you tomorrow.